No one buys a car to arbitrate it.
All the analytics say that it's going to be a flat year.
From what I've seen, the right car, like you said, is still bringing really good money. Customers are more protected online purchasing than they are at a physical auction.
Get real, the auctions aren't going to get any easier. There's always this conversation of, I'm being feed to death. Every car stands on its own and it should have an exit strategy based on your market.
Now we're back to, hey, you got to find that inventory. You got to be a car guy a little bit.
So we're back in the regular car business. What are you doing to hit your strategy? What are you doing to make sure that you're different? Is this a true partnership or is this a vendor-dealer relationship?
Are you wasting your time and money on inefficiencies in the business? Are sales down and lead conversion rates are low? Are you having problems building or maintaining inventory levels? What does it really take to win in the automotive industry?
Get the cars that make sense for your store rather than just wishing at an auction, so it gives you that better control.
With over 25 years of experience, Darrell Steed isn't just another industry voice. He's the guy who's out there solving real problems for dealers just like you.
They'll even say in the Pacific Northwest where you're at that it's a tougher market. It's, it's tougher to find cars. The market's a little bit softer. And in the midst of all this, your turn doubled and your profit's up 75%.
Yes.
The truth hurts only when it should. Are you ready to hear the truths? Darrell is here to unpack the hard truths and the proven strategies that will take your dealership from struggling to soaring. And he is taking it all in the streets, with real talk, open dialogue, unfiltered conversations. This is the podcast series, Street Smarts, powered by SmartWolf Consulting.
Hello, everybody. Another episode of Street Smarts, powered by SmartWolf Consulting. Today, we have a special guest, which I have known from quite some time. As we always start, we're going to introduce Mike Jones with Open Lane Auction. He has been in the industry for a couple decades at this point. From everything you could possibly imagine, but he really focuses on serving dealers on the exit strategy and then finding the right inventory, which in today's business is kind of where everyone's struggling. So as we start every podcast, we always like to ask every guest, okay, where are you winning, Mike, in life? We don't want to hear about business. Everyone tends to say they're doing well, but where is things going really well for you in life?
Life in general, buddy, is really good. Family's healthy. I'm healthy, family's growing. So honestly, it's good. I got 3 kids now, 13-year-old, 2-year-old, and soon to be 8-month-old tomorrow. So, no complaints when it comes. That's funny you say that, because when people say, how are things going? They expect you to bring up, issues, and I got none. Life's
yeah.
good,
And
buddy.
I mean, it's great, right? Like every time I ask people that, they're like, oh, my job's going good. Life's good. And I'm like, yeah, no one cares about your job. Right. Like it's at the end of the day, our job is something we do for the people we love or the people in our circle. And if our life, not our job, is doing really bad or struggling or has things like that, I typically, and I'm not going to say every time, but typically our job's probably not doing great either, because we can say we separate those things, but I don't know if that's ever really possible. For me, I'm kind of with you. I hear people struggling with some stuff, and little struggles like anybody else, but I have 3 beautiful kids, all in my life. My wife is fantastic. And my health, 3 years ago, I looked like I ate me. And so I've, lost a whole human person off of me, which is great. So I can't really complain. And so now things are kind of thriving, the podcast, the academy. And so it's great. And I'm glad to hear that, an 8-month-old. So you've hit the reset button and you're like, you're in diaper stage. That's fantastic.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a big swing. You deal with the teenager, then you got the baby.
Yeah. And well, I understand that I have a 25, a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old. So when I hit the reset switch with my 8-year-old, it was like, oh boy, we're doing this again. Yeah. And he's great. He has zero filter, and, it's funny, 8-year-olds, I think they're like the world's honesty meter, because they don't really understand what they say, if it's hurtful or not. And so, he is like, when he says stuff, I mean, you've got to have thick skin, because like he's coming at you hot. He's just saying what he sees, and it's a real test if you're doing the right things. Now you have a really interesting job, Mike. You've been around for quite some time in the auto industry, and you've seen the ups and downs, right? In the last couple swings of the market, and it'd be really interesting to hear just kind of what do you do now, and how is that different than what you've done before in the industry?
And that's a pretty good question. So I would say the ups and downs in the market. I mean, it really, going back to the 06, 08 era, right? When everything was kind of, it was crazy. And that's when I really got into it, was in 06. I started as an auction driver, and it was interesting to see all this inventory start to grow, but it was growing because dealers' lots were shutting down. Right. So it was interesting to see that transition. And then I started getting into sales a couple years after that, and watching everybody kind of come out of that, which was good. And that's when the online started really booming more, right? Online auctions, buying online, not even the online auction piece, more so buying online first from physical. Then you started seeing these online auctions pop up. Then it turned into, now customers are starting to run things online first before it gets to physical, mixed in with I prep my inventory on through the condition reports online, then I go to the physical auction, to where now I feel a lot of these guys are using online platforms for their business, buying and selling before they even look at a physical auction. And to watch that change it's just been crazy, because I think some people still fight it, but no matter how you look at it, whether it's retail or wholesale, it starts with online first. Whether you're looking at your car before you walk into the dealership, or you're looking at a car before you go to a physical auction. And I think that your business has changed, just to add on to that, Darrell, to where I feel customers are more protected online purchasing than they are at a physical auction.
It's interesting you say that, like the online part of it, because I think, in today's industry, we like to leverage things when they suit us, right? Like we like to say like, oh, this is this and this is this, in like certain processes or certain situations. And we don't look at it as like, no, it's all around us. For instance, like online activity. I mean, since, the internet officially was no longer the devil, right? And the year 2000 came, then 2011, and like now we've embraced it. More cars are sold, but the auction started going that way too. And which will be a really interesting segue into what the auction is doing, is once it became online, you had significantly more people engaging with it, because it was one of those things where you went to and you spent the day, or you spent time, and you had to put in a lot of work to get to where you wanted to be on that, because you had to be there. And so then stores then had a more unique or diversification of how they do it. And I think now that it's online, now even the exit strategy, because I want to talk about both of them, but I think the exit strategy is unique in the sense of most stores don't even have to take their inventory anywhere because of the online strategy and like some of the services you guys provide, or other carriers, that it can be done at store. So the control factor of it has really given dealers that ability to kind of figure out what they need to do. Now, when it comes to like what OpenLane does, right? Because you guys have a kind of a unique thing. You guys have kind of how would you say it? There's been a maturation of where you guys were to where you are now, of where you started. And I think it'd be really interesting to hear about like where OpenLane was. Because OpenLane was its own thing, but you guys have kind of like grown into from two different things into something else, of like where OpenLane started and now what it does, and why it is something that dealers should be looking at in today's day and age.
Yeah, so OpenLane, I mean, that goes back to even before I started. But the short version of it is, we rebranded completely to the OpenLane name. So we initially, we had Trade Rev in 2020. Then we purchased Backlot Cars. So then we were Backlot Cars. Then we purchased another auction called CarWave. And then we continued. We moved all that into Backlot Cars. And then now we rebranded to OpenLane. But what was nice about the rebrand with the OpenLane is the relationship we have with the OEMs and the off-lease inventory. So we power a high percentage of the off-lease inventory. So what's nice is, for some reason, if that grounding dealer passes on some inventory, it will funnel into our site. And then we get that opportunity to sell it before it goes downstream. And what's nice, that everything you purchase through OpenLane as a franchise dealer comes with a buyback guarantee. So it eliminates the risk for franchise guys to purchase through us. So meaning, you purchase a car through us, you have 7 days, put it through your shop, you find something wrong with that inventory, you can start an arbitration claim, and then we can look at buying that car back for you. So eliminating that risk as in terms of what your shop bill could be and or any issues that come along.
Now, interesting enough that you say that, because that's something that's just the way you said it is either new or like just needs clarification to, is when you guys say you have a buyback guarantee, because there are other auctions out there and they offer a service, whether it's Deal Shield or whatever else they call it, because there's different versions or iterations of that. Are you saying that if someone buys a car, they have the 7 days, that if it has to go through arbitration, or you guys will just unwind it if the dealer says like, nope, it doesn't work for me because they found something in way of mechanical, not something that they found a dent in it, but something mechanical that you guys have kind of closed that gap on the hassle or the roadblock that some arbitration companies provide, that you guys will then unwind it and let the dealer know that it has to be resold? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, no, actually it's exactly what you said. So keep it simple, right? That's what it is. So we'll just go from the day of sale. So if a franchise guy purchases a car from us, 7 days from day of sale, they don't use our transport. They get that car to their lot. They put it through their shop. Hey, it looks like this car ended up having, a slight engine noise. It easily could have been missed by the condition report writer, but my shop found it. A high service tech, able to find it. I actually don't want this car anymore. Okay, no problem. OpenLane will take that car back. We'll reimburse you your full purchase amount, your buy fee, and our buyback guarantee fee. And then we'll reinspect it, and we'll sell it from the lot.
I'm going to be 100% honest. That's something new that I hadn't heard from. And I actually just talked to some of your team down at Used Car Week. And when this airs, this will be a little bit past that. But I think that's something that we got to spend a few minutes on, because I'll be 100% honest. There's some ups and downs about every auction right now in the market for dealers, but this has to be one of the biggest ups that I can put my finger on. Is I know that everyone deals with, let's just sit there and get them out in the world. We have the Mannheims, we have the ACVs, we have the Odessas, and we have OpenLane. Those are the four biggest ones that I know of. I'm sure there's one on the East Coast that I'm not aware of that also has a big following, but you guys have got to be the first ones that I know that has that without having to pay an additional fee on top of that, to where it's, it makes it, because fees become an issue, right? Auctions, there's always this conversation of, I'm being feed to death. It's specifically why I'm not a fan of one particular, but we'll leave them out of it for the moment until we don't. But is that we're like, oh, we pay a lane fee, and then we pay this, and then we pay this, and like, okay, well, they're profitable, which I understand, but then dealers can't be, right? And as a consultant and somebody that's really good with used cars, it's hard for me to be like, yeah, let's go sit there and go crazy at the auction when we're basically building another company through profit strategy. So the fact that you guys are offering, and I'm guessing there's got to be a caveat to this, or is there not? Is if they say, hey, they just don't want it, they give it back, or do they have to have like an RO showing that they found something? What do they need in order to have this buyback guarantee?
So in theory, yeah, we ask for that RO. We ask for something for documentation. Ideally, we don't want to resell it and have that just move that problem, kick the can down the road. Sure. We want to disclose it properly if it is something that was, truly missed. But no, it is a no questions asked. Hey, we'll take this car back.
And I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I think like that. We have to give you guys some flowers right now. We've got to let you guys take a bow and take some flowers. And this is why. Because I'm going to address this, but auctions for me are very hard to get behind, right, for a buying aspect. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is, and it's not anything that you guys do wrong. It's not that the auction's like, oh, some big enemy. It's no, the market is very compressed. There's a lack of inventory. So now you have buyers out there. And, Mannheim reported 94% cost to market. I think Odessa reported 92% cost to market is their average sale. Well, then you think about that. If I'm paying 94 or 92%, then I have transport, then I have fees. Like before the car even gets to me and I put it in the shop, I'm in this car 100% of market. So there is no real profit strategy. However,
Yep.
the fact that you guys have alleviated probably the single biggest headache at the auction, which people may disagree with me. They may have the best arbitration team in the world. I'd love to meet this store that has this, because I have yet to find a store that says, oh, arbitration's fantastic. They always make it easy on me. It would be just absolutely comical, because I think that's why people start to go like, why am I going through the brain damage? But the fact that you guys are saying, look, it's about the experience and the relationship with dealers. Now, with that being said, because I think that's just absolutely awesome. However, for you guys as a company, how do you deal with that on the other side, right? Because, when you do something like that, you're basically saying, hey, we want to make sure that we're providing you guys the opportunity to come and get a vehicle that you guys can retail and stock your store with. But on the other side, for dealers that you're going to have to say, okay, hey, we have to unwind this because there was an unknown problem. That has to be kind of a double-edged sword for you guys as a company. How are you handling that on the other side so that you guys stay solvent and you guys don't lose business going to somewhere else that maybe doesn't have that service?
So the back end on the resale piece of it, I don't see that part of it, Darrell, to be completely honest with you. I don't know what that looks like. I do know from our company is we want the ease for our customer and the experience. So that was one of the reasons behind rolling this out. And I think I go back to arbitrations, right? Like, no one buys a car to arbitrate it, in my opinion. And I think you guys are buying them. You guys want to retail them. You guys want to make some money, and I think nowadays the margins are so slim. And I think what OpenLane's done is we're trying to eliminate the risk for you guys. We're trying to make it easy for you guys to buy and sell used cars, and just to feel the transparency behind it, and to give you time to put it through your shop. Some things pop up down the line. It sucks when you have an arbitration and you're a day late of your arbitration period. You know what? Normally I buy the 14-day extension. This time I only got the 7. Can you help me? No, we can't. And that happens all the time at the auctions. So we're just trying to eliminate issues for.
No, but I think we have to appreciate that. And if people don't, I think that you get to that point of where you're asking too much, right? As a customer to the auction, if you give me 7 days, and that's part of the purchase price, right? And you're giving me essentially a free buyback program, or you're not charging for that, where some people are charging a very large sum.
So we charge, Darrell, to be clear, but it's very minimal, and we give it back if we end up taking that car back.
But that's what I'm saying is you're charging to have it on there, but if it has to be used, everything's refunded, right? So, but knowing that is then it allows dealers to do something a little bit different that I think everyone has to take responsibilities for what they're doing, right? Is okay. If I know I have 7 days, then, and you say, hey, we don't make these exceptions, because you're giving it to them, right? You're giving them the 7 days, get your stuff taken care of, and then boom, you have it. Is like, okay, now you understand, guys, I have to make that a priority. If you thought this car might be a little edgy, or you thought you can't take 10 days to get it through your shop, right? Because now you have to be a little bit more conscious of what you're doing, which in all fairness, every vendor out there that deals with used car acquisition in store is always trying to get cars through the shop faster, or that's what they should be doing, because we all know turn is the key to obviously the most profit that you can possibly do. So if you are taking 10 or 11 days, I get it. Most stores are looking for the person to blame. Well, it's because I couldn't arbitrate. Well, if you took more than 7 days, you have bigger problems than the auction. You have fundamental problems in your store, because if it's taking you 7 days to get it through the shop, how many days is it taking for you to retail cars, right? So I think it's great that you guys are putting out some very fine guidelines of, hey guys, this is what we're providing to do our best, right? Everything can't just be given away, but we'll do our best to where they know what to expect. And once they know what to expect, then okay, how easy is that? If I know what to expect, then I know exactly how to tailor my expectations. If I don't do that, well, then it's a mirror check, right? Okay, was it you or was it me, right? And I'm sure that there's case by case basis, but you have to work with what it is. Now, I'm curious, and now when it comes to selling, what do you guys see right now? Because I can speak from my experience of the clients that I deal with, and then the conversations I'm in. The auction's tough right now. It's expensive in the sense of cars are bringing a premium. And then whether, you have fees and you have inspections and you have all that, is what are you guys seeing with dealers getting those? And is it ramping up? Are you seeing it level off? Are you seeing it to where dealers are struggling with that all across the country? Would be the first question. The second is, you said something that I thought we definitely need to touch on, is that you guys now have partnered with off lease or leased inventory. I think it'd be great for everyone to understand, is that every brand? Is there certain brands? And when do you guys see the uptick in that? Because we know that COVID kind of relieved leasing, right? There was no leases, but now we've been outside of that for a couple of years. So now leasing is starting to come back. We're starting to see inventory come back. So what does that look like?
Yeah. So leasing wise, I don't have all the brands in front of me, but it's about 80% of the leasing portfolios we power. So we'll get an opportunity at that inventory. Right now, from what I've seen, the inventory has been a little tight when it comes to that. Like you said, that we're starting to lease again. So at some point that will catch up and we'll see that come back through. And then that will funnel through our site. But I think that's going to take some time. As in terms of the dealer inventory and what else we offer. So I have Northern California and Pacific Northwest. I don't have the whole country, but from what I've seen, it's we've in Northern California, we've grown year over year and month over month. We've done well. I got a really good team of 12, very hungry, very motivated, right? So they've done well. As in terms of the pricing in the market, from what I've seen, the right car, like you said, is still bringing really good money, and the other ones seem just kind of flat. It's interesting. You'll break wood on the right one, and then the other ones you're debating how much you want to lose, and hopefully your losses are very minimal and you're making good money on the other ones. But I would say, overall, Darrell, we've brought on enough new accounts for whatever volume has dropped, we've been able to get incremental business from it. I
think that's interesting what you just said, right? You'll break wood on some, and then you got to figure out kind of you're reducing or you're managing loss in some cases, right? Because loss is part of the business. What I actually heard, and I hope dealers heard similar to this, what I'm about to say is, so we're back in the regular car business then. So you mean the fake flu, aka COVID, is over? We don't have this magical button that we just say, oh, we bring rain. Because what you're talking about, or those exact terminologies, it feels like 2017, 18, before all this stuff started happening, which was sometimes there's cars that, for whatever particular reason, they're not desirable. They just don't. We may have overstepped a little bit to make a deal. And then other cars are very desirable depending on the area of the country, because I think that's another thing that online did. Is I remember being at Mercedes, and this was years and years and years ago, is I would fly out to Florida because, let's get real, there was a lot of lease returns in Florida, and I would buy Mercedes way cheaper than I could ever buy them on the West Coast. But I had to fly out there, I had to do a lot of homework, had to do all this stuff. Well, now I don't even have to do that, right? With that, online also created that dynamic of I don't have to get on the plane and do all that. And if their lease returns with 15,000 miles, I mean, what am I really in for, right? How bad can it really be? So I think it's interesting that you bring it up like that, is that we're now back in the automobile industry that we were before COVID came back. Yes, compression is tight because there is a lack of inventory compared to the 17 and 18 levels. But we're back in that of, we need to understand market values again. We need to understand that not every car is going to outperform the market anymore. I think people also need to understand that MMR is, how would you call it? It's in the past. So when you're looking at that, you need to understand that you can hope that it brings that, but that's not real analytics. That is, past analytics. And, as markets change, specifically, at the back half of the year, we know that things soften a little bit. And then when the start of the year comes, typically picks back up. I mean, this is a cyclic business that it's not always the same, but we do typically see very similar trends throughout the year.
We're in the hockey stick business, is what one of our senior leaders used to say. Hockey stick.
and that really is, right? Because I think we try to convince ourselves, oh, this year is going to be different, or this quarter is going to be different. And then when you go look at it, there are stores that are outperforming the market. There is no doubt about it. They either have a dialed in process or they have figured it out. But the market as a whole typically has the very similar trends depending on where you're at in the country. Now, what I would love to ask you, because I have a relationship with you, known you for quite a few years, but like OpenLane is a vendor to dealers. And they create a couple different solutions, right? They create the wholesale strategy solution. They create a buying platform. But what does OpenLane do? What does your team do, right? That gets in the trenches with dealers to help them be successful. And when I ask that is, there are so many vendors out there that have software tools or that have a tool of any kind. And they say, well, we provide them a service. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's just my character. Maybe it's just I'm tired of hearing the bullshit. Is what do you actually do to ensure the dealer's successful? Or do you just say, hey, we give you access to something and then they have to hope to be successful? Because I think that's where people are looking for is this a true partnership or is this a vendor dealer relationship?
Yeah, I definitely think that in general, the car business is a relationship business. Whether it's you're building a relationship from, beginning and then all of a sudden it turns into a long-term partnership, and then which could turn into a friendship, right? A lot of customers that I've met are now friends, which is great. The one thing I would say with OpenLane is our goal is to make wholesale easy so that our customers can be more successful. So what's nice with us is we try to offer that solution for them with the wholesale piece, buying and selling, which will, if we make it easy for them, they can focus on retail. So in the trenches wise, Darrell, we're out there looking for inventory and at the same time trying to provide inventory for our customers to purchase, which you've seen, us being in and out of your stores numerous times, whether it's buying and selling, and just trying to help you guys out. So I think it goes back to, again, with that buyback guarantee that we have, helps eliminate some issues for the franchise customers to where now maybe they can take a little bit of risk. They can look at auctions a bit different, knowing that they are taken care of on that back end if for some reason some issues that they didn't anticipate pop up.
I think that's great. I mean, I know I've known you, obviously another person on your team, Risa, which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah. I was just actually talking about her, how she is full of energy. She is like a walking spitfire that will definitely challenge you, but at the same time, she's doing it to help you, because I think some people get comfortable in this is how we've always done it, which to me 100%. Is right. Which is, for me, that phrase is right up there with "we tried." I personally think that people should just be slapped for saying silly stuff like that, because one, you can never try anything in life. It is the worst phrase you can say, because the moment you actually do it, you've done it. You can't try anything. You either do or you don't. And then this is how we've always done it. Well, then you must like having up and down results. Because if this is how you've always done it and you don't evolve, I don't want to say that other word, because every time I say the word change, it's like I'm cussing at someone. I say that weird C word and they're like, ugh, I don't like it. So let's say evolve or transform, because maybe this one's a little bit more palatable to the auto dealer nation. I think when you have people on your team like that are like, hey guys, I get it. That's how you've always done it, but you haven't got the results you wanted, or you're not happy, or you're not satisfied, or whatever it may be. It's great to have a different voice of saying, what if, or, let me have the opportunity to show you what I can do, right? And then getting in the trenches, right? And actually hey, I'll come and do this. I'll come and do this. So that when I believe, and I have for many years, is when people actually get in the trenches and actually show that they show up, it's different than people that send you an email or they just text you and they say, hey, how's things going? Because again, when I'm in it and I'm dealing with frustrations and dealers are dealing with frustrations, when other people are there just is sweat equity, so to say, they're in it with you, you're kind of go hey, I see them, I know they're doing something, and they appreciate that, right? They appreciate the fact that you're locked in hand with them. So I think that's great, because I don't think that every vendor in your space does that. I personally can say that for sure.
What's interesting? It's one of the things I've noticed being the vendor and going in and out of, doing the dealer visits, really, is which customers ask you, what are you hearing? What are other what are other franchise guys doing, right? And at that point, sometimes that's when my light bulb goes off, or my think tank sessions go, is this person's paying attention and they're listening to all their vendors and they want to know outside of their store what's going on. We can do as much reading and try to do our own homework on certain things, right? But sometimes you have to separate yourself from other dealerships on what you're doing as well, right? And the only way to do that is to ask and to evolve, right? So it's interesting to hear that from you as well, because you are a customer. So
and I think I was watching a sports talk show, and I probably get it wrong of how exactly said this, but it's the comparison others is the basically that's your start of disappointment, or like of mediocrity or failure, because you compare yourself to other stores rather than just figuring out where you want to be successful. For instance, let's say it's 2 Ford stores. Mm-hmm. And they say, oh, that other Ford store, they're really crushing. And like, what are they doing? What does it matter? Right. Like, do you have the same goals as them? Do you have the same business model as them? Do you have the same inventory levels? Is like, what's your goal? What are you doing to hit your strategy? What are you doing to make sure that you're different or unique? And the reason I say that is, you can, when it comes to new cars, everyone has the same new cars. Ford has Ford, Toyota has Toyota, so on and so forth. Your used car situation obviously makes you a little bit better, because when you have used cars, right, you're one of one, right? Now it's a value proposition. But it's like with you guys, I know in your guys' space, not everybody is getting in the trenches or making sure they foster that relationship. They're like, for instance, some of them say like, well, we have the most cars, so if you want to be here, you can be. I'm like, okay. And that's fine, right? And maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I don't, I'm not going to sit there and like get into the semantics of it. However, it's at the end of the day, okay, then your business will thrive when it thrives, but it will also see dips when people need it, like when people are struggling. And I'm more of the consumer experience and the having those relationships, because that's kind of that loyalty. That's that, okay, when I need something, I know they're there. And I find that interesting that that's kind of where your guys' core belief is. That's what you've always told me. I was talking to your guys' CEO, Used Car Week. Really, really obviously genuine character, nice guy. And that's the first thing he said is like, this is, even if it reduced amount of profits, which is always interesting to hear, is we value the customer more than we do that, because we know in long-term strategy, that's where it's going to be, right? Is it's going to be in the business that is that. Now I'm curious, right? I've talked to some dealers and how they look at it, but I'd love to hear your perspective, because I personally, I just can't get my head around this. So it'd be interesting to hear what you think about this. So you'll see dealers now working multiple different auction resources and running them on multiple platforms at the same time and trying to like edge the middle, so to say, or edge again. What do you guys see happens when they do that? And for me, I can't get it. I don't understand it. I think it causes you more headaches than it's worth. But what are you guys seeing on your side of dealers that do this? Are they finding more success? Are they finding themselves more headaches? Does it create a dynamic to where it's hard to get a following when you're in a certain auction? It'd be interesting to see your guys' side of this.
So it's all of what you just said. But I think I go back to, again, the customer experience on that. The purchase of that vehicle, right? Now, car guys they're smart. They're on multiple sites, right? Whether it's buying or selling. So, I imagine, Darrell, you're purchasing a vehicle and you see it on a different online platform. You see it on 3 of them. At what point are you just going to stop bidding on that platform? I mean, pick one, right? So to me, it just softens the money for you, my opinion. Now, you can run on multiple sites, but to me, pick one, whether it's for that day, for that week, for the month, but give that one the loyalty, knowing that car is going to sell, or have a fair shot to sell, I should say. And if that happens, to me, you will have higher profits. You'll have more activity on that car, and more likely you have a better chance to sell it. And what's nice about us is you create that following. So I know you've seen this on the back end, where we, customers can select to follow sellers. So what's nice about that is anytime that if they're following you, they post a inventory, it notifies them. So now every time Darrell Steed's posting the car, it's notifying 17, 20 guys, however many followers you have. So that you hurt that if you post on multiple sites. So
no, it's funny it's funny you say that, because you guys have one unique thing. You have more than one, but the one that I was talking about was you guys will give them like a seller score or percentage or whatever. I don't know exactly what you call it, and I was talking to your CEO, and I thought it was interesting. I said, yeah, when I see a guy has a 30%, it's kind of what you just said. I'm like, why am I bidding on that car?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, as doing used cars and then consulting with other used cars, it's like, why would I waste my time if this guy sells 30% of what he puts on there? Mm-hmm. Like now, if I see a guy which is 70 or 80%, right? I go like this. I'm like, oh, this guy's probably a player, right? Like, I would love 100%, but this guy's selling 7 out of every 10 shots, right? So, and I think it's interesting that I don't think dealers have grabbed on to the fact they're like, well, then I just won't list there. It's like, no, it's like you said. And I'm not saying just have one exit strategy, right? Like, no, I don't think anyone's saying that. Is okay if you guys run on, let's say it's Thursdays and Mondays, right? Okay, so I'm going to be like, I'm running my inventory on those days, what I have on those days. I'm not putting it anywhere else, or I'm definitely not putting it at the same time or anything of that nature. And then maybe I have another outlet that I run on Tuesday and Wednesdays, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. But you have to have that so that you can understand there are different pockets in the market. There are different areas in the country that some just prefer certain things. And so it's like you have to make sure that you're maximizing that rather than, well, this one brought $100 more over here than this one did. And then you're trying to figure out fees, and then you're trying to figure out ARBs, and you're trying to figure out all these things. It's like, are we trying to outgame the system?
Yeah.
To where we in turn cause ourselves more headaches, right? And I think that's one of those things where I've always appreciated the relationship side of it is like, and which I will say specifically about you, Mike, is that you guys aren't afraid to say like, hey, look, if it outperforms somewhere, then obviously do that. But let's look at this, and then doing the analyzation of it. And so that you're like, hey guys, you're not afraid of like, hey, if there's a certain segment that doesn't work in that area, like you're also advising them, right? Which is part of that relationship business. Mm-hmm. But then if you are doing well, for instance, I was telling you in Northern Oregon, like when it comes to Subarus, like there's no question, like there's not even a thought. It's like, oh, we're putting them over there. That's where we put them. These guys like that, we know that market where they're all on this auction. Why would we list it anywhere else? Maybe it brings more, maybe it doesn't. However, we know that these particularly do very well on this platform in that area. Mm-hmm. So and I wouldn't have known that, but obviously you guys gave us that information. So I was like, okay, so now it creates a strategy. You just know when cars come in, here's this exit, here's where it's going. It's also that like what you guys have done in the past is, okay, that you will tell people like, hey, these are where we're seeing a lot of this type of car coming out of the market. Let's say it's Texas or whatever. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for those type of cars, providing here's where we're seeing a lot of this segment, $25,000 to $30,000, right? So now you know, like, okay, if I need to go buy some cars, put in the zip code, go look in this area, because you know that this is where you're seeing a high concentration of that, which I think helps the buyers not waste time.
Yeah.
Right. Because time is crucial. And let's get real. The auctions aren't going to get any easier. I wish that you guys had some solution that we just hit a magic button and it just took care of it for us. But if you're going to put in the time, you want to put it into the areas that you're going to be able to do the best in.
And I think that you see it now where you're on multiple sites and you have to, have 100 in your watch list for a possibility of getting 20. Like what you said, you're searching all these zones now. The market has, I say change, but I think it's like what you had said. We're going back to what is normal or what we thought was right. So you had the COVID, and COVID dragged on for a little while. And then now we're back to, hey, you got to find that inventory. You got to be a car guy a little bit now. It's not.
Yeah, you got to put in some work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why I think that's interesting, and like we'll kind of move on to an interesting topic is with used cars. So we're about to hit 20, we're at going into 2025 next year. And when you look at everything, all the analytics say that it's going to be a flat year. Now, I don't know exactly what flat means to these guys, because everything I'm seeing, it still says there'll be an uptick, but used cars, we're not quite at the full lease penetration that we were.
I think anybody can talk themselves in and out of what's flat, what's low, what's high.
So it'd be interesting. What do you see for next year in way of like where dealers need to focus the most of their attention? Like, is it I mean, we know acquisition because acquisition is where everyone's trying to be, but where do they start? Like, is it, do they have to be more surgical about it? Like, do they have to be more diverse? And then where does open lane fit into that picture of helping dealers or making sure dealers are going to be positioned properly at the first part of the year?
So I still think news continuing to grow right at these dealerships. So I still think that might end up sitting a little bit unless more incentives and things come out when it comes to the finance side of it. And I think used is still always going to be the bread and butter for dealers. So I still think it's going to start with, that famous saying, and we all know it, you make your money on your buy. You don't make your money on the sell. So you got to buy them right. And I think open lane is still positioned right where we need to be, one, for growth for the company, but also to help the dealers in the fact that we have that buyback guarantee to help protect them. So we still have, like I said, we power 80%. I think it's 80% of the OEMs off lease inventory. So you're going to see some of that come, even though that inventory is going to be tight. And then at the same time, you feel a little bit more protected, whether it's a rental purchase, a dealer to dealer purchase, something that you might not normally do. You hear a lot of franchise guys say, hey, I don't like to buy from other dealers, which I think that needs to, I hate to say the word because what we said, but change. Because just because it doesn't work for that guy doesn't mean it won't work at your store. Markets are different. And if you purchase it correctly, you could end up retailing it and, making the store some money. So overall, I like the position of what we're getting into with the tax season coming. And hopefully we have, what's considered a good tax season and not for customers. That's a variation. But I think we're positioned well for the franchise guys with the protection that we're offering.
No, I agree. Now, I was also talking because, I deal with the private party acquisition and the in-store operations for service, trades, and private party. And I help with auction. I look at auction as more of a surgical way to buy a car now, just because of compression is like go after the cars you need immediately and understanding what's incremental business and what helps your internal economy, right? Because I think there's different pieces of when you buy a car. We look at this very small piece of front-end profit, whether it's successful or not. And I think there's a big misnomenclature of the internal economy of your store and does it make money in different areas. So, which we could spend like 100 hours just on the breakdown of the operational profit of a store when used cars come in. But is when when I focus on the acquisition strategy is having that holistic approach. But I'd be curious, do you think, all right, in the future, so you have the KBB instant cash offer, right? And they have a guaranteed buyback. And that still has to be inspected, right? They don't just we're doing that without inspecting it. And then you have the AccuTrade, again, an inspection. But do you see open lane getting into that type of situation to where that really harnesses or really brings it all back in the fold for people that are in that acquisition strategy for the cars that you acquire, whether it be trade or purchase, that you're not the right end user? Because I agree with you. Just because you don't want to buy from a dealer, well, there's dealers that don't have the same retail strategy. So if they can't make it work, but you can, I want that car because I have a different strategy. So do you see open lane getting into that where they offer that same type of, if you put it in or you get a strategy to where they have type of a guaranteed buyback so that one, you're delivering more inventory, but two, you're giving dealers an exit strategy for them to be successful with?
That's probably above me. I'm not in those conversations, to be honest with you.
Sure.
So I don't know. I mean, that would just be a sheer Mike Jones thought. So I don't know on that, honestly, Darrell. I don't want to overspeak overpromise for the company. So
no. I asked because if you guys have been talking about it, great. If it's not something that's been in the works, and here's the thing, it's not like there's a lot of people that do this. KBB ICO was something before, it wasn't back. They just are a big elephant.
I think dealers are creating their own as well, right? Whether it's through KBB, and KBB's expanded. I mean, I think you used to work for KBB.
Sure.
I got a couple people on my team who did as well, and it's just expanded so much. But I think dealers are trying, whether it's through a different vendor and using that, that platform. I think the public still has a lot to offer when it comes to cars, but I also feel everybody's trying to fish from that barrel. So who really knows what is successful? And I know you've done very well, implementing that at stores. And you've done, from what I've seen, it's gone well. Inventory's grown. But I do think first public's a big deal.
Yeah, I think, it's one of those things, right, is that I think people get stuck, right, in the private party purchasing, right, is when I go in and I build either acquisition strategies or help them with their service and private party acquisition so that they can have a holistic approach, right? Because you don't want to be reliant on any one source, because then what do you end up being? You end up being reactive. You don't end up being proactive. However, what I think people fail to miss most of the time when they attempt on their own is that when you're going to do private party, or you're going to go after your service drive, or you're going to get more aggressive with trades, whatever it is the auction, and this is where I'm a big component of the auctions, and for the right ones with the right relationships for your store, is that's your exit strategy, right? If one's doing well, if one's doing better, it's like understanding that is like, because if you're not the right end user, you say, okay, I bought this 2024 Nissan Rogue with 2,000 miles on it, and you're at a Toyota store and there's 190 of these in a 100-mile radius. One might say that might not be the right strategy for you because they're over suppressed in that area, or over stocked in that area. So why would you keep that car? Now, I'm not saying you don't have a great retail strategy and you could price it really low to move it fast, but I'm looking at that and going like, why would you? Why would you put yourself in a position when, if you have a wholesale strategy, get off that car, turn your money, and go get a car that really works for you? So when I build these centers, I go, hey guys, like, yeah, we want as many retail cars as possible, but wholesale is okay. It's not an ugly word. It doesn't mean you're losing car deals. I think you can be profitable on that side because they're just cars. For instance, the store I'm sitting in today, if we bought a Jaguar Range Rover, nice car. I mean, it's really, really pretty. It's really nice. This store couldn't sell a Jaguar to save their life. They've attempted it many of times, and it's just not the right market, or it doesn't come to this particular brand to get a Jaguar. I don't think anyone's coming to a domestic brand looking for a Range Rover. So they take that car in and they can wholesale that. They can make a little bit of profit or a lot, depending on which car it is, and they get done with it, turn their money. And then the store that needs that car has the car they want. It's like, hey guys, it's symbiotic, right? Getting cars from private party, getting cars from this new acquisition model or evolved acquisition model helps everybody. It keeps the whole circle going. You have to understand which ones you're good for and which ones you're not. Like, if you don't understand your retail strategy, I think that's where you see a lot of dealers get in trouble. And that's something that I really appreciate that you've always done, Rice has done, is you'll show people, hey, this car is really, like you said, breaking wood on the auction right now. And you're delivering that message to customers of, hey, if this didn't work for you, let's put it up there and let's see what happens, because you might actually be better off just getting out of this car. And I think that's where that partnership comes in, is like educating dealers of like, oh, wow, hey, I saw you had this car. We're actually seeing this outperform in Texas. Might be a better strategy for you to wholesale it than it does to retail it, right? Because again, wholesale is a type of selling, right? That's not fake. It's not fugazi. It happens all the time. And so I think it's interesting to have auction partners like that for that side of it, right? Is having that challenge, having those people educate you to like, hey, you have aged inventory, or you have a car you took in, but it's not getting a lot of activity, and then having them have a strategy with you.
Hey buddy, sorry I cut out for a split second, but so back to the wholesale piece of it, and I agree with you. Like a lot of customers, I got to retail out of it, and we're in it too heavy, got to retail. To me, turn the money. Wholesale profit is still okay. Just because it doesn't work for you doesn't mean it won't work for X over here.
Sure.
And I think that's a great strategy to have, because if you sit on your retail inventory, if it gets 120, 180 days, values change. If you would have just sold that at, say, 45 days, what would that loss have been, and or that profit? And that's a big swing when it comes to the overall bottom line. But I agree with you. Even though I am in the wholesale piece of it, for a customer, I don't see there's anything wrong with wholesaling if you can turn your money quick and still make a profit.
Well, sure. If you have a faster churn, like they've already shown, some will say 30 days. I think that's great. If you can spend 30 days of inventory, I mean, if you can continuously do that and find enough replacement inventory, I don't know how you would ever lose. I mean, that is magical. But most stores have this 60-day churn, and at 45 days you have to look at it. Well, they've already shown at 30 days, if you're making money, you acquired it really well. At 45 days, if you can get out of that car, then that's your best strategy because you're only losing money after that. Now you can sit there and say you priced it up or you made this or that, but they've already shown all the analytics after 45 days, your flooring interest, curtailments, lot rent, whatever else is, it's already not profitable for you when it comes to commissions and everything else. So it's understanding now, I think is everything has to have that ebb and flow and understanding that used cars, we are really back in the pre-COVID times of you need to move off your inventory, but you need to have an exit strategy from day one and understanding what that strategy is per car. It's not the bucket system, which I personally never liked, is we're just going to set stuff in buckets. No, every car stands on its own and it should have an exit strategy based on your market. And having a really good partner in that wholesale strategy is how you alleviate, like you said, some of this business is about minimizing loss as well as maximizing gains. And when you understand that and have the right partners, then you can say, okay, look, yes, we made a mistake, or this one we got over our skis on this or whatever. Let's minimize our loss and then have those strategies rather than letting our pride or our ego go like this. Nope, I'm going to hold on to it. Someone's going to buy it. And then we end up going like this. Oh boy. Like now we're losing thousands or we're losing bigger than thousands, right? Because in some luxury cars that can happen. So
I like how you said each car stands on its own, because that is everyone's strategy is a little bit different. And I've noticed with certain customers, whether you made them $2,000 on one car and then they lost 500 on the other, each car stands on its own. So
sure. Now to just kind of like wrap it up and kind of just give people some insights is like going into 2025. Okay, if you had 2-3 minutes to say, hey, look, what is OpenLane going to do? Or what are you guys doing, and why people should obviously say, hey, look, this is where we're at. This is what we're going to do. And, so that people should have a conversation with you, right? Or one of your team members. Where's OpenLane going, and why is this something that dealers want to pay attention to?
I think it's the partnerships that we're developing and the relationships. And I think the inventory, if you look on our site, has grown year over year, and it's going to continue to grow. We have those partners with the OEM, so you're going to see a lot of that inventory when that comes back funnel through there. We have a really good sales team building the relationships, and I feel like we're trying to be dealers' partners in helping them purchase and sell their inventory to have, whether it's the beginning cycle of a car or purchasing it through our site, helping eliminate that risk with the buyback guarantee that we have. And then at the same time, the exit strategy when it comes to the wholesales. I think our transparency on our condition report has given customers an ease, whether it's the trade-in that they're buying and or, I say front line, but everybody's front line's different, whether it's that type of car as well. But just the fact that we're giving you guys time to put that car through your shop and see what else could possibly going on to help eliminate that risk, I think is huge. And it's going to position you guys, I think, to help retail some inventory, and it'll ultimately customer experience. And I think we keep being a step ahead of everybody. And I think if we continue on that track, 2025's ours to take, super confident, but I think that we just have the best customer experiences. That's my opinion.
And you know what? Here's the thing. We'll see what 2025 brings, but I will say when it comes to confidence, I appreciate it, right? Is if you're not confident, then it makes everybody wonder, what are you doing, right? But two is you guys have a really great customer service model, right? And how you talk to people, how you engage. And then I'm going to be 100% honest, how you challenge people, right? Because this isn't about pumping rainbows into people's asses, right? Making them feel good. This is also about challenging them so that they understand, like, hey, if you see something that they're not doing or they could be doing better, it's also making sure that you inform them with that information too. So you guys, as we're wrapping this up, right? Mike is great. He's in the Northwest and Northern California area. He has a great team under him. I personally worked with one of his support team, Nathan Sylvester. Risa is, one of the best. And so it's one of those things where if you're looking for the right partnership, it's the people you surround yourself with. Everyone can provide you a software. I'm going to be 100% honest. There's softwares out there from big to small, fat to tall, right? But it's one of those things where it's, what do the people look like? How passionate about who they work for? Because that tells you a lot about how they're taken care of by the top down. And then are they willing to get in the trenches and go to work? I can specifically tell you, Mike will answer his phone just like me up till about 10 o'clock at night. After 10, you better be calling for bail money because that's when he's got to shut it down. But that just shows you that they're in it with you, that they know if you're calling that you have a question, right? And I think that's a real testament to when you surround yourself with the right people, it's hard to fail. It's really hard to fail when you have the right people on your team, whether it be vendor partnerships or people in your store. And that's what we do with Street Smarts, right? We're talking to the right people, the right attitudes, the right demeanor, because our goal is one, that you're engaging, that you're having conversations about this, that you learn at least one thing, right? If we can give you one thing that you didn't know, or that it gives you the ability to think about things differently, then we've done our job on every podcast, because we want to build those bridges with the right people in the right places. So I hope that everybody has gotten a lot out of this. Mike, I want to personally thank you for coming on, because I think it's great to have people like you in the world that are always doing the right thing, whether people are looking or not. And then having those right partnerships, right? I don't like to, there's vendors. I deal with a lot of those. And then there's partners. And I love having the right partners, because it allows everyone, not including myself, to be able to do their job without the stresses that other things provide when they're not partners. So I want to thank you for coming on. I hope you continue with your success. I'm looking forward to seeing what Open Lane does in this next year. And hey, guys, this is Street Smarts, right? We brought it to the streets, okay? And we're showing you guys how to take it to the streets and bring profit back into your store. Mike, hang on with me for just 1 second.